Hey, Rick Najera here on KPFK. Rosario Marin is a compassionate mother, dedicated public official, and consummate advocate for the disadvantaged. She served for 22 years at the local, state, and national levels. Her professional career includes banking, nonprofit organizations, and the corporate world. She's a businesswoman, internationally sought-after public speaker, and the author of Leading Between Two Worlds. She served in Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger's cabinet as Secretary of the State and Consumer Service Agency. In 2001, she was appointed by President George W. Bush and unanimously confirmed by the U.S. Senate. Ms. Marin serves as the 41st Treasurer of the United States. She was first elected to the Huntington Park City Council in 1994 and served through 2001. Ms. Marin received her Bachelor of Arts degree in Business Administration from California State University, Los Angeles, and completed the program for senior executives in state and local government at Harvard University's John F. Kennedy School of Government. In 1995, for her tireless work on behalf of persons with developmental disabilities, Ms. Marin was awarded the Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy Prize by the Joseph P. Kennedy Jr. Foundation at the United Nations. For her contributions, she's been awarded 4 honorary doctorate degrees from CSULA, Whittier College, St. Francis University, and Woodbury University. Mexico's Senate voted unanimously to award her the Elvia Carrillo Puerto on March 8, 2016, and on May 8, 2016, she received the Ellis Island Medal of Honor in New York. With her husband of 35 years, Alvaro Marin, she resides in Huntington Park, California. She's a mother of 3 grown children, Eric, Carmen, and Alex Whitford. And she's our guest today on Latino Thought Makers. And our slogan is, Latino Thought Makers, we are American. And this is an American I wish to honor and speak to today. Ladies and gentlemen, Rosario Marin.
Oh, my goodness. Thank you, Rick. I really, really appreciate that beautiful introduction.
My pleasure. Like I was telling you, people in Hollywood, and I work in Hollywood, are more impressed by politicians than any other group. We look at you guys as the stars. You know, you fit that look, you fit that feel of what Hollywood is. But at the same time, you're doing government policy work that really impacts people. We entertain people. Like I went overseas to entertain the troops. I was in Diego Garcia. I was there doing stand-up and working with the troops, and I had a guy just came back from Afghanistan. He said, "Wow, you're our hero, Rick. You came out to here." And I'm like, "Oh, I say a few jokes. You guys get shot at. It's a whole different ballgame." You've done incredible work. I mean, to be the treasurer of the United States. I have your signature on my bill.
Yes, double.
Twice. I have it twice. I have it twice too, on a $20 bill.
Thank you, Rick.
But how did this all start?
Hi, Rick. Well, it's a few years back. Obviously, I never thought that I would be in politics. I was in banking, and I was doing very well in banking. I had started for City National Bank as the assistant to the receptionist.
Wow. The assistant to the receptionist.
There wasn't anything below that, otherwise that's probably where I would have started.
I don't even know where that starts. Assistant to the receptionist.
But an incredible bank. I am so grateful to them because they realized that I was going to school. I was working full time, but I was also going to school at night. You know, I'm an immigrant from Mexico. For me, there was really no opportunity to go to college full time, even though I graduated with honors. I had to go to work and help my family.
And that's typical of us Latinos.
It is.
We work.
But I also needed to get an education. I needed that, you know, even though it wasn't really expected of me from my family. And so I went to work different places, but eventually I ended up working for City National Bank. And they saw the desire to succeed, the desire to get ahead. And I was working first one in, last one out, you know, the work ethic that really prevails in all of us. And then I was going to school at night. And they started promoting me, Rick. So in less than 6 years, I was going to be named assistant vice president for the bank. I was doing very, very well. This is many, many, many years ago. So from assistant to the receptionist to assistant vice president within the banking world was an incredible an incredible rise.
Yeah.
And very grateful. And so I was going to be in banking for the rest of my life. As a matter of fact, I already knew what I was going to do 5 years, 10 years. I was going to be vice president and senior vice president, executive vice president, and then president of the bank. And I'm going to have my own bank, blah, 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 blah. Yeah. Never anticipated that my life would have a dramatic change with the birth of my son. My son, Eric. My son, Eric, was born with Down syndrome and with many other complications.
Yeah.
He wasn't just born with Down syndrome. There were many other things on top of the Down syndrome. So difficult were those first few years that he had, in his first 5 years of life, he faced death 6 times. And, you just really never know, especially in those very dark moments, when you feel so lonely and when you feel so helpless, that things happen for a reason. Yeah. I am an absolute believer that things happen exactly as they should, even though at that point in time,
it didn't look good.
It did not look good. I gave up my career at the bank. My career, not my job, my career. I gave up my MBA at Cal State LA. I never even called them to say that I wasn't going to continue. I was making more money than my husband at that time. So when more than 50% of your family income disappears overnight, we had to sell our home. I got pregnant very soon after Eric was born. And most regrettably, I lost that pregnancy as well.
Oh, so sorry.
So there were moments and there were nights, Rick, that I was hoping to go to sleep but never wake up. And then you wake up and you say, I can't. But then you see your child that is totally dependent on you. Yeah. And he wants to live. And he's facing far more difficult physical challenges than you ever will. And you just have to go on. And so if somebody at that point in time would have said, hey, Rosario, listen, you can't see it right now, but eventually you will help change the laws for people with disabilities. You'll work for a governor, Pete Wilson, minor.
Yeah. He was mayor of my town, San Diego, where I grew up.
And you will be elected to a city council, the city of Huntington Park, and you will become the treasurer of the United States, and you will run for the U.S. Senate, and you will be the first Latina to do that. If somebody would have said that, Rick, I wouldn't have believed it. It's like, no, I'm a banker. I know nothing about politics or government or policy. What do I know? Yeah. But that happened. And my life changed for the better.
It's a mother's love. I mean, I have to tell you, my brother John was born with a cleft palate, a heart that was smaller, was deformed, basically. He had a lot of issues. And my mother told me that she took 3 buses to find a therapist for him. Three buses back in those days. And the therapist only spoke English, of course. And so she said, we can only speak English at home. So everyone started speaking English at home. This is the reason my Spanish is horrible. So people always say that. I was on Despierta America one time, and the guy says, I'm surprised how bad your Spanish is, Rick. And I said, 10% of Mexico doesn't speak Spanish. They speak indigenous languages.
That's true.
So count me as one of those guys. So I see a mother's love change the world. And that's been happening for the beginning of our civilization. And that is when, and I know that story, and I heard it. I was particularly touched because what you did, it all change happens mostly from love.
Right,
of course. And that's the love you showed. You had a moment in your life where you had an epiphany.
Right.
Not an Episcopalian, but an epiphany. And where you saw the meaning, what your mission was to be. Will you tell me a little about that?
Yeah, Rick, there was this one night, and my husband and I, it's just the two of us. Eric is already asleep. And all of a sudden, we're drinking a glass of wine in front of the chimney, just somewhat romantic, but just peaceful, just peaceful. And all of a sudden, I had this feeling, that something overcame me. And I turned to Alex and I said, Alex, I know what my mission in life is. Like it's just like a revelation, if you will. And he turns around and he goes, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like, okay, what is it? I'm like, oh my goodness. And I said, I'm going to leave this world a better place for people like Eric and families like ours. And he turned around and he says, Mamita, if that's your mission in life, I'm going to make sure that you accomplish yours. That's going to be my mission in life.
Wow. Well, now every wife is listening to this program is turning to their husband right now and going, why aren't you like that? Look at that saint. He's a saint.
He is.
But you've been married, what?
35 years.
Wow. That's beautiful.
I give him a lot of credit. My husband, I love him dearly. Yeah. He's been my rock. He's given up a lot. When he decided to take that onto himself, I didn't ask him. Out of the goodness of his heart, he said, I will make sure, if that's your mission in life, I will make sure that you accomplish yours. When there were times, of course, what that meant is that I was going to go and change the world. I was going to be traveling all over. I didn't know I was going to do that. But when those opportunities came, I went and touched and continue to touch hearts, right?
What you've done is you've inspired, which is so, there's motivation. We talked about that. Is people motivate? You can motivate someone with a bullwhip, with threats,
right? Exactly.
But to inspire someone, to put a vision in front of them where they go after that vision, that's what you do.
I try really hard. I do, Rick. And when he had opportunities to advance, he worked for the city of Los Angeles. And when there were opportunities for him to advance, he would say no. Because with every advancement, that there's traveling involved. You have to go to conference. You have to do this, and the other. You have to work overtime. And he would give all of that up so that the kids, because after Eric, we had 2 other kids. The kids knew that at 6 o'clock, Dad was going to be home.
Yeah.
I was there most of the time, but he was there all the time. And I will always be grateful. He's the best father in the world. I couldn't have chosen a better father for my 3 kids.
That's great. But did you feel guilt? Was there guilt?
Well, so like the first few years, I was the one that was at home with the kids.
Yeah.
The first 6 years, I was at home completely and totally dedicated to my children. And then, I went to work for the governor. And that took me to Sacramento. So I would leave on Monday mornings and come back on Fridays. And then I was in city council. And then I went to Washington. And all this time, Alex was faithfully delivering on his promise to be there for the kids, mainly. He was always there for me, of course. But he has been true. And I will tell you this, Rick, as you can see on the dollar bill, when the bill came out, I looked at him and I said, honey, look at this. Rosario is mi nombre, my name.
Yeah.
But Marin is your last name. This is 50-50.
That's beautiful.
This is not Rosario Espíndola Morales. No, it's Rosario Marin. 50-50. This could not have happened on my own.
Isn't that the case? It's our families, and especially in our culture, that how important family is. How we can't even imagine. It's like so seldom. I don't see a lot of Latinos putting their grandparents in old folks' homes and assisted livings or all those things. And, partially because it's very expensive. But secondly, more importantly, we can't imagine ever being apart from any one of our family.
No, I can't.
Yeah.
And that's why Eric is with us, and he will be with us until the day I die, at least with me.
Because I think of the same thing with my children. I'm going, can I get I almost want to have that little complex of houses.
Right, exactly.
So you can walk to this house that your son's at or your daughter's at. And
well, I live one block away from my mom. There's 6 of us, and all of us live within a mile radius. My brother, I live right next to my brother. I mean,
Yeah.
there is ever a situation, everybody's there in less than 5 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Like everybody just congregates.
Yeah.
Except for my brother, he just moved to Oregon. But other than that, the five of us, we're so close. And the same thing with my husband's family. They live in Bell, right? We live in Huntington Park. They live in Bell. It's what, 1 mile?
Yes, it's like my family's the same way. I think my family started off in Barrio Logan, in San Diego.
Yes.
And my mother and sister, we moved to La Mesa, which was a very upper middle class, neighborhood. So there's about 3 Mexican families moved up there, and there was a Mexican family down the street from me, and they lived on a chicken ranch. And I told my mom, I go, wow, those are really Mexicans. Wow, they're not chicken ranch. I saw a chicken walk through their front room. I was like, these are Mexicans. I told her. It was the first joke I ever wrote. I said, I told my mom, hey, Mom, I want to go play with the Mexican kids down the street. And she said, you are Mexican. You can stay home and play with yourself. But it's actually what she said. And then up the street lived another, Mexican American family. And that Mexican family down the street is Juan Vargas.
Oh, my goodness. I know him very well.
Yes, Juan. What a story.
Yes, he's amazing.
His family. And the other Mexican family, a few blocks away, was Elena Ochoa. Elena Ochoa,
course,
the
yes.
first Mexican-American astronaut. So all 3 of us growing up in this town, and it was very white. I mean, there was a picture of me in kindergarten, and I'm güero, so, as we say among our people, güero,
Right, güerito.
which means tall, good-looking Latino male. But what it was I looked at my picture in this kindergarten class, and it looked like Mayberry RFD all around me, and me. I never looked so ethnic in my life. And in those, places of what we do is we go to different cities. We bring our experience and our culture to different cities, and we make those cities better.
Right,
So much,
absolutely.
They're so much better for our presence than we're so much better together than apart. You talked about, you've gone into politics.
Right.
At this point, you're doing it motivated by your child, because there really wasn't any
Right.
any services for someone with Down syndrome.
Right. Especially for Latino families. I realized when I was looking for services for my son, and I became very involved in the field of disabilities, that often, more often than not, I was the only Latina, the only black-headed individual around the table. And I kept wondering, there's got to be more.
Yeah.
And I realized that many of the Spanish-speaking families didn't know, didn't even realize that there were rights, services that their children were entitled to. I found cases that it would kill me at that time. A child that was 5, 6 years old that had never received any services, that had Down syndrome, only because their parents didn't know that they had rights, that there were services for them. And it would just kill me, because I knew, if only they spoke Spanish, spoke English. And so we created a support group. That's how I started the support group for Latino families that had children with Down syndrome. Today, that organization still, it's a support group. It's a parent to parent, it's counseling, it's taking them by the hand, it's saying, I understand, we know what it is to have the news that your child.
Alone. Yeah,
right.
Just you're not alone.
Exactly. And that, Rick, is so important to any family that believes, as I did, that I'm the only one. Why is God punishing me this way, right? And then when you realize that, in fact, there are opportunities that children with or without any other disabilities, first and foremost, they're beautiful children. They're wonderful, regardless of their disabilities. Yeah. And so we help the families, and we take them by the hand and say, these are the rights, these are the services, your child is entitled to this. And that took me into the world of policy making and then politics. I never thought that eventually I would be in Washington.
Yeah, Washington. I mean, you're the treasurer of the United States. I mean, you're the only Latina immigrant. that is in the Treasury of the United States.
Right.
I mean, your signature is on all those bills,
Right.
which I think is great.
Amazing.
It's like when I look at that, it makes me happy.
You know what, Rick? When President Bush appointed me Treasurer of the United States, I believe he did it not because I am this and that or the other. It's who and what I represent. I represent that immigrant that comes with nothing, but is willing to work hard, is willing to get up every morning and do their best and try their most and give it their all. And improve their surroundings.
It's persistence. You know, a lot of people don't talk about this. Is I go, look, people look at me as a writer, done TV shows and film and all this stuff I do. I go, I'm not extraordinary person. I'm a very ordinary person. You're an ordinary person, as you've told me, but you do extraordinary things. And what that is persistence. And you had a great vision, you know, and a need, and that love inspired you. Right. To work in that, and your persistence is truly paid off, and it has been inspirational. You of course worked with the Republican Pete Wilson during Prop 187.
Right. I had no friends. Oh my God, Rick, I had no friends during that time. I will tell you this. It's in my book, actually. My book details this particular event. It's called Leading Between Two Worlds. In this particular chapter, I talk about 187. 187, the proposition that would seek to deny services to people that were not here with their documents. And the Governor Wilson was looking for his reelection. You know, he was getting reelected. And so I had worked for him. I was working for him. I was also the council member of the city of Huntington Park.
You had an immigrant right in front of him.
Right. So I was for his reelection. I was in favor of him getting reelected because he had done a very good job for the state. And we can get into...
In a lot of ways, I remember him as a mayor of my town. And that was odd because when he did the 187 thing, I was surprised.
Yes.
It's like it did not seem like the Pete Wilson I knew. All of a sudden, it turned... Was it a political idea of his? That he thought this would help him?
It wasn't his. It was a group that started with this, and then I guess he did support it. He did, and obviously he defended it when it was challenged. Of course, it got lost. The state lost that challenge.
And luckily for our laws, I mean that's the thing.
Right
now, I'm looking at the way the politics is right now, and I have to say, you know, thank God for the lawyers. Thank God for our Constitution. Thank God for a Bill of Rights. Thank God for all those things, because law is a very subjective thing. I mean, at one point it was legal to have a slave.
Right.
You know, so laws can change. And the law that a lot of times is used against us as a culture and as a people, in the end, it is really hurting America, because if our future, our united future, is how well Latinos are educated versus incarcerated. You know, all those issues are policy and politics. And I think sometimes, you know, politicians are pushed by the media or what they believe the base will understand. And I think we need to be, as politicians, be the inspiration.
Right.
That's what leadership is.
Right.
To choose sometimes the unpopular.
Well, I've done that a few times.
You did that.
Rick.
You did.
Not only at that time, you know, I was opposed to 187, but I was for the reelection of the governor. I actually could separate the two, and in my mind made perfect sense. The governor was very, very good for the state, and he left this when he took over. We had a $14 billion deficit out of a $40 billion budget. So he very Solomonic. He came in and he said, we're going to reduce services $7 billion and we're going to increase taxes $7 billion. And he cleared it. And 8 years later, he left a $9 billion surplus for the state. So I was right in supporting him, and what he did for the economy of California was incredible. But I opposed 187. So when I said that I had no friends, I had no friends. The Republicans didn't like the fact that I was against 187, and the Democrats didn't like the fact that I was supporting his reelection. But I felt it was the right thing to do. And the governor, whether people know it or they don't, he was very kind and very generous with people with disabilities. And when I asked him to sign the bills for people with disabilities, and when I asked him to support the budget and the increases in the budget for people with disabilities, he did. So he had not only my gratitude as the mother of a child with a disability, but really my appreciation for his generosity.
Because San Diego, where I grew up, and is a very conservative town.
Yes.
It's surprisingly conservative, yet I grew up 15 miles from the border.
Right.
So you go, and a lot of times in school system, I never heard about Mexico. Oddly, I studied the California school system. I studied Japan, and I studied I think it was like France or something. And I'm like 15 miles from the border. I remember my teacher brought in, we're studying India, and she brought in a chapati, which is this flat wheat bread. And I said, "It's a tortilla." And she goes, "No, it's a chapati." I said, "No, it's a tortilla." She goes, "No, it's a chapati." And this blonde woman in a Indian garb teaching me about India kicked me out of class. I had to go outside because I was asking the wrong questions. But I was surprised when Pete Wilson did that because, first of all, if you grew up in San Diego, San Diego is an extension. The best neighborhood in Tijuana, they always joke, San Diego.
San Diego.
So we can't
prior
separate
to him being governor, he became, or he was granted, honorary citizen status of Mexico.
Wow.
Yeah.
He was a Mexican citizen.
He was a Mexican citizen. I mean, obviously 187 for me obviously was a turning point for our state.
It was a turning point for me too.
For the Hispanic community.
Yeah.
And regrettably for the Republican Party, it's been I forget, what do you call it?
A chain?
A chain in our neck. Yeah. What is it called? Anyways. Yeah. So unfortunately for our party, and it seems to me that at the federal level, they haven't realized that is going to happen across the United States if we are as Republicans don't learn the lessons from California.
And a lot of people always ask me that because I come from a very progressive left family. My cousin's married to Cesar Chavez's daughter. He has an organization called Field, which is a great organization that works with farm workers, agriculture or rural workers and people. And but at the same time, my other cousin was second in command of customs, all these other things. My other cousin was head of homicide in San Diego. So I have the right and the left always in my brain. So it's always made me kind of look at both sides. And I think as Latinos, we tend to be pretty conservative.
Right.
I don't think people see that. The Republican Party could really gain a lot of Latinos if they weren't so anti-Latino.
We were doing so well, Rick. Let me tell you, because I was involved at the national level, at the state level, at the local level. We had been going, especially with the coming of Governor Bush, becoming the president of the United States. President Bush, in his first years in office, Rick, he appointed more Latinos in his first year in office than Bill Clinton did in 8 years.
Yeah. No, and I think a lot of people don't realize it. I always saw Obama being bashed for his anti-immigrant policy. They called him deporter-in-chief and all that. But I thought, why aren't the Republicans applauding him?
Right.
No, he's deported more Latinos during his administration than anyone else.
Right.
So we have that schizophrenia within our politics, where they're playing to one base or not doing the other, and no one is really talking about solutions.
Right.
That's the thing, and I believe in my heart that Latinos should be in every single party.
Absolutely, me too. I've always said that.
Yeah.
I have always said that, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I continue to be a Republican.
Mm-hmm.
I continue to be a Republican, but it doesn't mean that I supported the current president. Mm-hmm. Just the opposite, Rick.
Yeah.
Because
Anna Navarro doesn't support the current president, and she's a Republican. And I have to tell you,
I didn't vote for him. Mm-hmm. I felt that he offended me.
Yeah.
As a woman, I could probably even forgive him for being, for the things that he said. And he felt that just because he's famous, he can grab any woman's private parts.
Which is even me conceptually a hard thing to imagine grabbing.
Right?
Because I looked at it and I said, and he said locker talk. And first of
no,
all,
no, I don't know.
I'm
No.
a guy in plenty of lockers, and
No.
no guy I've ever met has ever said that to me.
No, it's just demeaning. I could almost forgive him for being anti-immigrant, and I'm an immigrant. I could.
He's married to an immigrant.
Three immigrant women.
Yeah, 3 immigrant women. So how hypocritical is that?
I can almost forgive him for being anti-Mexican, and I was born in Mexico, and all the nasty things he said and how he kicked off his campaign bashing the Mexicans.
And building a wall and all that stuff. And first of all, walls don't work. Great Wall of China didn't work. Berlin Wall, Hadrian's Wall. I can go down the list. And the truth is, most immigration is through overstaying visas.
Of course.
So it's so this wall's got to be 30,000 feet in the air to stop a plane. Yeah.
Has to be 33.
33. Is it 33?
But you know what? Sometimes planes fly at 44.
Right.
So, but the one thing that was really what killed it for me was when he mocked that reporter.
Oh, with the disability? Yeah, that was...
That just...
And then lied about it afterwards and said he didn't. If you're caught, at least own it.
To me, in my mind, it's like, what kind of a soulless creature would do that?
Yeah.
All the other stuff, okay, I can defend myself as a woman. I can defend myself as an immigrant. I can defend myself as a Mexican. But really to go after people with disabilities.
No.
Disabilities. I am sorry.
Yeah, there's no border against disabilities.
No.
It's in the entire world.
And it's been my life's work. It would be very hypocritical of me to try to even justify it by this nonsense of he didn't know. Really?
No, he knew.
Of course. And we all know.
We all knew.
We all knew he knew. So it's like, no, I'm sorry. I can't. Once he got elected, I said, I wish him well. He is the president of the United States, as painful as that is. So I wish him well.
And I also say this, you're someone that is a Latino thought maker. You come up with the new ideas, and you're part of the solution. So thank you so much for being on the show. And today especially, it's your birthday. So I'm honored, truly honored to have you here.
Oh, Rick, it's my pleasure. And, if I can only just say one thing to our community is never give up. Take it from somebody who's gone up and down. And, we're always on top. And so sometimes we just have to take it. We'll take it. We're strong enough. We can take it.
We can take it.
But you know what? We'll be back.
Thank you. Rosario Marin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Rick.
It's a pleasure.